Hi guys, this is Mr. Lay. I'm here to teach you about learning how to use linear equations to create a table. So let's look at this example problem over here. It says for the rule negative 2x plus 1, calculate the y values that complete the table below. So now you have your tables of x values over here. So let me change my colors really quick. So I got x values, and then I got y values. What x values are what you put into the equation. So the long way to do this is you can take any of these numbers, and let's say x is equal to 0, you would just plug that where x is up here. And then you multiply negative 2 times 0, and then so on, and you would solve it. But is there a faster way? The faster way is simply to know what does a linear equation mean. So when I look at a linear equation, the typical format of a linear equation is y equals mx plus b. Okay? And y equals mx plus b is composed of two components. First of all, you have m. M is your slope. And slope is another word for your rate of change. It is a number that you change the pattern by for your x values, okay? For each x value, it's changing by something. And then b stands for the y-intercept. And you will always find it a point where the line intercepts the y-axis. And remember, the y-axis is up and down. So that means that point is always in a given coordinate, which is very important that you must know, is it's always in 0, comma, b. It's always going to be in that middle where 0 is. It's going to hit somewhere on this vertical line. Always. Okay, that's why it's called a y-intercept. So those are just kind of like the definitions of the words. Now I want you to look at this format, and I want you to compare y equals mx plus b and y equals negative 2x plus 1. Notice they are in the same format. So this is really easy to figure out which one's the slope and which one is the y-intercept. So over here, I see m is next to the x. I see negative 2 is next to the x. So that means this right here. You see how I link those together right here? Do you see how they're both next to the x and they are in the same place? That means what is my slope in this problem? My slope is m equals negative 2. That means the pattern is changing by negative 2. Okay? The pattern is changing by negative 2. All right, and then let me do another one. Okay, well, let's b then. B is just a single number, no x next to it. B is plus 1. So that means b is equal to 1, or on my graph, it's 0, comma 1. And I want you guys to understand that 1 is right here. Notice the 0 stays the same. So now that I have these two pieces of information, it's going to be very easy for me to create a table. So one, I'm going to start with the y-intercept because it has the letter B. What does the letter B stand for? It stands to begin. So you always begin with the y-intercept. So, all right, so let's think about this. Mr. Lay said the y-intercept is 0, comma 1. So one of my points on this table should be 0, comma 1. Notice that I got that from here. Okay, you guys see that? It's my B. Now, what was the pattern that I said it was? Oh, it's changing by negative 2. So that means if I put in another x value, it's going to change by 2, negative 2. It's going downwards. So let me think about that. So why don't we write that out? So I'm going to write over here, Mr. Lay says it's changing by negative 2. So let's see, 1 minus 2, if I had to think about it. So it's going to be, take away 1 is 0, and take away 2 is negative 2. Or negative 1, I'm sorry. So negative 1. Okay, now repeat the pattern. So again, the pattern changes again by negative 2. And the pattern again will change again by negative 2. And it will change again by negative 2. Okay? Ooh. So this, if I owed somebody $1, then I borrowed 2 more, I'm going to owe them 3. And if I borrow 2 more again, I'm going to owe them 5. If I borrow them again, it's going to be negative 7. And with that said, now I have at least 5 coordinates I can use to graph this linear equation, right? Another thing I can look at over here at the previous values, instead of, if I'm going backwards, then reverse the pattern. So I just have to add by 2 to find the other values. So I know this is going to be 3, it's going to be 5, it's going to be 7, and it's going to be 9. So now that I have all my tables, now I can actually do something with it. I can actually graph, right? And I just want you to notice that even before I graph, I already know what my graph is going to look like because of the slope. I know what my graph is going to look like because of the slope, because I know it's been what? If you look from left to right, it's decreasing. I spelled decreasing wrong. This is why I'm a math teacher. So that means my graph should look like this. It should be going downwards. So if I know if I start putting my points out and it's definitely wrong, then that means I need to make sure that I am doing that. I need to redo my graph, okay? So let's create my graph. A great way to create your graph is usually doing a 10 by 10 in all directions. You can modify it to be like an 8 by 8 in all directions, but you really do it based on your table. You see how my x values only go from 4 to negative 4? So when I create my graph going left to right, it should probably be like 4 to negative 4. And on the other hand, if you look at my graph over here, it goes from 9 to negative 7. So I should probably go up to 10. So I'm going to create my graph. So here's 5, and then here's 10. And then I'm going to go about 8 this way. By the way, this is a very rough drawing. It's not going to be super straight because I'm trying to do this as fast for you so you can see it. Okay, and now I have my graph. And now I just need to graph it. So always start from your first point. Your first point is 0, 1. So that means 0, 1 means you always go either left or right for the first value because it's an x value. And you always go up or down for the second value because it's y. So that means 0, 1, it's going to be right here. I'm going to put it right here. So 0, 1, so I start at the center, and then I don't go anywhere left or right because of x at 0. Y tells me I need to go up by 1 unit. So here's my point right here. That's 0, 1 right there. This is 0, 1. You always go left and right before you go up because we have x and y values. So this is x, this is y. Okay. And then now I just plot my other points. So let's say the next point is what? It's going to be 1, negative 1. Well, what is that telling me? It's telling me going 1 to the right, and it's telling me to go negative 1 down, 1 unit. So now I'm going to go back to the center again, where I always start at the middle, which is called the origin. So I go to the right by 1, go down by 1. That's my next point. Okay, now I repeat for the same thing for the other points. So if I do 2, negative 3, that means 2 to the right, 3 units down. So uno, dos to the right, and then uno, dos, tres, three going down. And if you look at my graph already, you can kind of tell that I am creating already a beautiful line. And here's another crazy trick. You actually don't need a table to graph. You can actually use the slope. And whenever I told you about slope, slope is showing you a change in rate, right? So what did we say about our slope before? We said our slope was equal to -2. But very few people know that it's actually over an invisible 1. And slope is always equal to rise over run. Another way I like to think of it is wise over run. Because remember, up and down stands for the y's, and then run is the x, which is going left and right. So this is only for slope, okay? So an easy way I can do this is I can actually look at this, and you can basically say the slope pattern is count 2 down and 1 to the right. For slope. So for example, let's start at that last point we did. And let's pretend I did this. So I started at this point right here at 2, -3. Okay, I'm going to count 2 down. 1, 2. And then what did my pattern say? Oh, 1 to the right. Okay, so pattern is count 2 down and then 2 to the right. So that, or 1 to the right. So I go 1 to the right, and ta-da! Now I have my points. And then obviously don't actually shade it in, but if you had a pencil, you would do it. Now what if I repeat the pattern again? 2 down, 1 to the right. 2 down, 1 to the right. 2 down, and then 1 to the right. Oops, I counted too much. And see, that stuff like that happens. You just gotta be, that's why I use a pencil. And then make a point. And then before you know it, repeating all these patterns will find you points, even the ones that are not yet on your graph. And I also want you to notice the pattern works in reverse too. So instead of saying 2 down, you can also say 2 up and 1 to the -1, which is to the left. So if I do it that way, I can go 2 up, 1 backwards, 2 up, 1 backwards, 2 up, 1 backwards. And then I can create all these points. I want you to clarify a common mistake when people do slopes is they do diagonals. Do not do diagonals when you're counting. It does not work that way. There's the reason why we have the grids to help you count. Oh no, let's redo that. So, and then last thing you always got to do, just draw a straight line all the way through. The more points you have, the easier it is. And then I just label it y equals -2x plus 1. How do I know it's correct? We start it at 0, 1 over here. And I also know it's right because it's going down. Going down by 2, over by 1, down by 2, over by 1, down by 2, over by 1. And it's going downward, so I know it's correct. So that's how you make sense of a graph.